Hello everybody and welcome to this very special Thanksgiving episode here on Esoteric Atlanta. I'm so excited to have you here. This episode is going to include the history of Thanksgiving here in the United States, and we are going to end with some conspiracies, some urban legends, some ghost stories that center around the Thanksgiving holiday that happens in November here in the United States. Because this is a holiday that's based around a bountiful blessing of food, a feast where we give thanks for our world, for the harvest, I thought that I would absolutely on this episode include some Southern recipes. So to start this episode, before we even get into it, we're going to start with grits. Grits is a fabulous Southern breakfast. It can also be served as a side dish with any entree. I love grits. You can add cheese to your grits. And so I'm going to be linking the recipes, every recipe that we speak about here today. All those links will be down in the description box below. But again, we're going to start with grits because grits are a breakfast food predominantly. But as I just said, they can also be a side dish. So reading from the article. As a girl raised in the South, I consider grits as much a part of my lifeblood as camouflage, sweet tea, and salt water. I've eaten more than my weight in cooked cornmeal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner as a side or main dish. Relatively inexpensive, quick, and accessible, grits are the perfect base for a meal that will stick to your ribs and keep you feeling full throughout the day. Most people are either ardent fans or they absolutely despise grits. But what that really means to me is that many haven't had a good pot. Many people have only eaten quick-cooked box grits, maybe at a diner or a family member's house. Those grits were likely characterless and tasted a bit like cardboard, topped with a pat of butter that muddied the corn flavor, which in any case was lost amid the heavy breakfast they were likely served alongside. Very few people, including many Southerners who have consumed countless bowls of it, have ever had grits made from good quality corn, simmered low in salt, stirred with love and consideration until they formed a porridge, sweet, nutty, and creamy, that take what seems like an entire morning to cook. These are the grits my grandmother speaks of so fondly, and the ones I want to show you how to make here. A brief history of grits in America. Grits are one of the first true American foods. According to Deep South magazine, the Muskogee indigenous people were among the first known makers of what we call grits, pounding or grinding dried corn with stones to create a coarse cornmeal and then cooking it into a soup or a porridge called stafki. When coloners arrived in the 1600s, they were introduced to native corn and its many preparations, including grits. Grits would become a staple in the southern colonies, forming what is now known as the Grits Belt, running from Texas to Washington, D.C., where most of the country's grits are sold. Like making a pot of perfectly cooked white rice, cooking grits that our grandmother proved can seem like a daunting task. Common issues usually run the gamut, from the grits being too runny or under-seasoned to the grits becoming too dry, thick, and or full of undercooked clumps. Too often, poorly made grits are hidden behind copious amounts of cream and cheese and then smothered under sauces, spices, and other intensely flavored toppings. To truly appreciate grits, all you really need are a few staple ingredients: salt, butter, water, and quality grits, and some good technique. Cooking grits is a lot like cooking polenta. You want to use a high enough volume of water relative to the quality of grits to guarantee that even the largest bit of dried corn will fully hydrate and soften. At home, I'll often start with a 4-to-1 ratio by volume of water to grit, and if the grits aren't fully cooked thoroughly by the time they thickened, I'll add more water, bumping up the ratio to 5-to-1. In the following recipe, I've set the ratio from the start at 5:1 since there's no harm in starting with a little more water. Worst case, you'll have to cook it for a few more minutes to thicken it up. This will guarantee, even for a total grits novice, a pot that cuts up silky and creamy. I also like to cook my grits covered, lifting the lid every few minutes to thoroughly whisk and stir and scrape to prevent lumps from forming and the bottom from scorching. The lid traps steam, which reduces the chance a lump-causing skin will form on top, and it will also prevent any pops of scalding grits from flying out of the pot, which can happen as the porridge grows thicker. Deciding when your grits are done is a personal choice and will determine your total cooking time. Some people like their grits more on the runny side, with a little gritty texture still remaining. Others want them creamy and thick but flowing, and some want them so stiff they're able to hold their shape when dolloped. Feel free to cook your grits to whichever point you want. Serving grits. There are many ways to serve grits beyond this humble recipe. Shrimp and grits is a classic pairing, and there are 1,000,001 ways to change the recipe. Add crab, lobster, crayfish, and oysters, or any other seafood you like. You can also serve them with a smothering sauce with chicken or turkey, or with a rich red wine piece of beef. Of course, they are a perfect side for your breakfast plate of eggs, bacon, and toast, but you can also change it up by adding salmon or corned beef hash. You can let the grits cool and fry them into grit cakes, which make a great appetizer or meal. Adding cheese, bacon, green onion, sausage, and whatever else you may have in your kitchen cabinets or refrigerator is also a good way to go as well, as grits can complement most things. The one thing you will never find on the table with grits, however, is sugar. Please leave that to oatmeal and other porridges. So ingredients: 2.5 cups of water, a half teaspoon of kosher salt, plus more if you desire, a half cup yellow or white corn grits, preferably stone ground, optimally rinsed, 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Directions: 1. In a 2-quart saucepan, combine water and salt and bring to a boil. While whisking, sprinkle in the grits, then return to a boil. Reduce heat to low, cover and cook, whisking and scraping the bottom very well for 2 to 3 minutes until you reach your desired consistency. Runny with some remaining gritty texture, about 30 minutes. Thick and creamy but flowing, about 45 minutes. Stiff and able to hold its shape while barely flowing, about 1 hour. Whisk in extra water, a tablespoon or 2 at a time at any point if your grits become thicker than you'd like. If your grits are fully cooked but too thin, you can speed up the thickening by cooking them uncovered, which will allow steam to escape more quickly. Whisk in butter until fully melted and incorporated, then remove from heat, season with additional salt if needed. Serve as desired. And if you do happen to try this recipe, please let me know below. Grits are huge, again, down here in the South. Very, very big down here. All right, with that being said, let's get into the history of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving in the United States has a deep historical, cultural, and mythic roots that blend Native American traditions, European harvest festivals, and early colonial history. 1. Origins before the Pilgrims. Long before Europeans arrived, indigenous people across North America held harvest celebrations, ceremonies of gratitude to the Creator, the earth, and the spirits for abundance. The Wampanoag, Powhatan, Iroquois, and other tribes had seasonal festives that gave thanks for successful harvest hunts, or the Three Sisters: corn, beans, and squash. These traditions were deeply spiritual, focusing on balance and reciprocity with nature. 2. The 1621 First Thanksgiving. The event most Americans associate with the first Thanksgiving occurred in autumn of 1621 in Plymouth Colony, in today's Massachusetts. The participants were about 50 English pilgrimage, half of their original numbers had died the first winter, and 90 Wampanoag people. It was a 3-day harvest celebration following a successful growing season, made possible largely by native assistance. The food likely included venison, wild fowl, duck, goose, possibly turkey, corn, beans, squash, shellfish, nuts, and berries. It was more of a harvest feast than a religious Thanksgiving day. The Pilgrims' actual days of Thanksgiving were usually solemn fasting and prayer. 3. Early colonial days of Thanksgiving. In the 1600s and 1700s, colonial governors declared days of Thanksgiving to mark safe arrivals from voyages, military victories, survival through harsh winters, and good harvest. They were not annual, but mostly regional, not national. Some were celebratory, others were solemn religious observances. 4. The making of a national holiday. In 1777, the Continental Congress declared a National Day of Thanksgiving during the Revolutionary War, celebrating the victory at Saratoga. In 1789, President George Washington proclaimed November 26th as a National Day of Thanksgiving for the new Constitution and the nation's blessings. In the 1800s, the holiday remained sporadic until the efforts of Sarah Josephia Hale, a magazine editor and author of Mary Had a Little Lamb. She campaigned for decades to make Thanksgiving a fixed national holiday, writing to presidents and governors. 5. Lincoln and the Civil War era. In 1863, amid the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln declared a national Thanksgiving to be held every year on the last Thursday of November, calling on Americans to give thanks and heal the nation's wounds. His proclamation set the foundation for the modern holiday. Thanksgiving was framed as both patriotic and religious, uniting North and South in gratitude. 6. Modern adjustments. In 1939, President Franklin D. Roosevelt moved Thanksgiving up 1 week to the second to last Thursday to extend the holiday shopping season during the Great Depression. The decision was controversial. Some states refused to change. In 1941, Congress officially established Thanksgiving Day as the fourth Thanksgiving in November, where it remains today. 7. Evolving traditions. 19th century. Thanksgiving became centered around family gatherings, feasts, and church services. In the 20th century, it gained its now familiar custom: turkey dinners, parades, football games, and later Black Friday shopping. It symbolizes gratitude and togetherness, but also prompts reflections on what it means to be American and the patriotism that lies in each American's heart. Next, we're going to look at earlier and lesser known Thanksgivings before the Pilgrims and how the American Thanksgiving myth was later constructed and reshaped. But before we get into that, another recipe. One of my favorite recipes, Southern sweet potato casserole. So from the recipe that will be down in the description box below. Our best, easiest, most deliciously authentic Southern sweet potato casserole recipe uses less sugar and adds a dash of cinnamon for a comforting classic holiday side dish. It's perfect to top with marshmallows and pecans or other favorite nuts. It's time for the holidays, which means we are getting ready for comforting casserole season. Layered, deep, luscious casseroles are, in my opinion, one of the best types of dishes to enjoy for Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, or any time the family is gathering for a big meal. They tend to be simple to make in one handy dish while still packing big, satisfying flavors. I'm typically not a fan of the Southern sweet potato casserole because traditionally it's too sweet for me. However, this easy Southern sweet potato casserole recipe is my favorite. It uses less brown sugar and includes a generous dash of cinnamon to really balance out the rich flavors. The best sweet potato casserole. This is by far the easiest, most foolproof recipe for sweet potato casserole. We use a food processor to quickly make the smoothest, creamiest casserole, and then it bakes in one dish. Best of all, our version is as delicious as it is easy to make. Cutting back on the sugar and adding grounding cinnamon creates a more savory, spice-filled casserole that actually tastes like the holidays. It's topped with mini marshmallows and pecans, then bake to perfection for a wonderfully familiar, yet slightly unique and completely fabulous sweet potato casserole. Ingredients checklist. This casserole is super simple yet incredibly satisfying. Here's everything needed to make a more savory, totally authentic Southern sweet potato casserole for the holidays. 1. Sweet potatoes. Scrubbed, baked, and peeled. Butter, of course, to create a wonderfully smooth and rich casserole. Brown sugar, for elevating the sweetness of the sweet potato while not being as sweet as refined white sugar. Salt, to balance out the sweetness. Cinnamon, perfect for adding a taste for the holidays. Vanilla extract, the secret for having a more mellow but bold sweet flavor. Chopped pecans or other nuts you may like. Mini marshmallows, or feel free to use large marshmallows if you prefer. No flour or eggs required. Now I know what you're thinking. Just what exactly is the difference between a sweet potato and a yam? While they are both tubers, yams are more starchy and dry, and sweet potatoes are, well, sweet. And it turns out that pretty much all options at most grocery stores are in fact sweet potatoes. You definitely want to be sure to purchase sweet potatoes for this recipe. How to make sweet potato casserole with pecans. The casserole is so easy, you can even get going several days ahead of time. You need to bake the sweet potatoes for about an hour until they are fork tender. I recommend doing this up to 3 days in advance of when you plan to make the casserole, and then keep the cooled potato with the skin still on in an airtight container in the fridge until ready to use. You'll only need about 30 minutes to make the casserole with your ready to go baked sweet potatoes. To do so, first preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and get out a large mixing bowl. Peel the loose skins off the baked sweet potatoes and place them in a bowl with the butter, brown sugar, salt, cinnamon, and vanilla extract. Use an electric hand mixer to beat the sweet potatoes into a smooth, creamy mash. Next, set out a large baking dish, scoop the sweet potato mix into the dish, and spread it out in an even layer. Sprinkle the sweet potato casserole with chopped pecans, then sprinkle the mini marshmallows over the pecans in a single layer. Bake for 20 to 25 minutes until the sweet potato casserole marshmallows are golden and puffy. Serve warm. All right, you guys, let's get back to our look at the history of Thanksgiving. 1. Earlier Thanksgivings before Plymouth in 1621. Though the 1621 Plymouth feast becomes the symbolic first, other Thanksgiving-like observances happened decades earlier in different colonies and even under the Spanish flag. Florida, St. Augustine, 1565. The earliest recorded Thanksgiving ceremony on U.S. soil likely took place on September 8th, 1565, when Spanish explorer Pedro Menendez de Aviles landed in St. Augustine, Florida. He held a Catholic Mass of Thanksgiving for safe arrival and invited the local people to share a communal meal. The food likely included salted pork, garbanzo beans, and red wine. No turkey or corn. This event predates the Pilgrims by 56 years. Virginia, Berkeley 100, 1619. On December 4th, 1619, English settlers at Berkeley 100, now Richmond, Virginia, arrived and held a ceremony giving thanks to God for their safe passage. Their charter required that the date be yearly and perpetually kept holy as a day of Thanksgiving. No feast is recorded, only prayer and observance. But it was formalized in annual Thanksgiving long before the Plymouth story. New Mexico and Texas, 1598 and 1599. In 1598, Spanish explorer Juan de Onete had led settlers to present-day New Mexico. After crossing the desert and finding the Rio Grande, they held a feast of Thanksgiving with the local people. Similar Catholic Thanksgiving masses were held by Spanish colonists in El Paso, Texas, decades before Plymouth. So why isn't Plymouth the first? Because Thanksgiving became a New England origin myth. submitted during the 1800s when New England elites shaped the nation's cultural memory. Earlier Spanish or Southern English Thanksgivings were largely ignored in national history because they didn't fit the Protestant narrative, or they involved Catholic rituals or indigenous alliances outside of the New England lineage. And because at that time, the U.S. preferred to trace its moral and cultural roots to Puritanism and the Pilgrim settlers, not the conquistadors. Thanksgiving as a tool of nation building. After the Civil War, Thanksgiving became a reconciliation symbol. It was used to unite North and South under the shared Christian national identity. By the early 20th century, schools and churches reinforced the Pilgrim and Indian story as the foundation of American gratitude and destiny. Immigrants were encouraged to adopt Thanksgiving as a way to become American, blending into the cultural fabric through food and prayer. In summary, Thanksgiving history isn't one event. It's a patchwork of ceremonies, myths, and cultural renovations. Spanish settlers, native nations, and English colonists all had early Thanksgivings. The myth of Plymouth was deliberately elevated in the 19th century to create a unifying, moral American origin story. And another recipe before we get into the urban legends and mysteries and ghost stories around Thanksgiving. This is pimento cheese potato gratin, and I just recently as an adult found out that pimento cheese is actually a Southern thing. I thought that was an everywhere thing, but turns out I was wrong. So if you've never heard of pimento cheese, please let me know down in the comment section below. So this recipe is coming from Country Living. No story here, just the recipe. So let's get into it. You're going to need 3 teaspoons of kosher salt plus more to taste. 1.5 pounds of Yukon Gold potatoes peeled and sliced into 1/4 inch thick rounds. 3/4 cup heavy cream. 3 shallots finely diced. 1/4 teaspoon of crushed dried red chili flakes. Half a teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. 1 9-ounce jar of roasted red peppers or piquillo peppers, plus 2 tablespoons reserved liquid. 2 cups of coarsely grated extra sharp cheddar cheese. Directions. Step 1. Set oven racks to the middle and top position and preheat the oven to 375 Fahrenheit. Bring 2 quarts of water and 2 teaspoons of salt to a boil in a 3 to 4 quart pot. Add potatoes and cook for 10 minutes. Drain and set aside. Step 2. Combine cream, shallots, chili flakes, remaining 1 teaspoon of salt, black pepper, and reserved liquid from the jar of peppers in a small saucepan. Bring to a simmer and cook until the chili flakes have begun to stain the cream for about 2 minutes. Step 3. Add half the cheese and stir until melted, about 1 minute. Remove from heat. Step 4. Layer a third of the potatoes in a 6-cup baking dish, overlapping if necessary. Scatter half the roasted peppers on top of the potatoes. Cut up any peppers that have remained whole so that they lie flat. Repeat until all the peppers and the potatoes have been used. Step 5. Pour cream mixture over potatoes and peppers. Gently shake dish to distribute liquid. Cover with aluminum foil and bake on the middle of the rack for 15 minutes. Uncover dish, sprinkle remaining cheese over top, and place dish on top of the oven rack. Bake until cheese is bubbly and lightly browned on top of about 8 minutes. Serve immediately. And before we get into our more juicy and scandalous section of this Thanksgiving video, I, of course, have to shout out our sponsor for this video, which is Fusion Body Studio. After you're done gorging yourself on all of the beautiful, bountiful goodness of Thanksgiving, it always helps to have a workout to help your digestive system digest all that loving nutrients that you just received. And at Fusion Body Studio, you have your perfect little at-home fitness boutique with yours truly, along with other master teachers. As I say often on Fusion Body Studio, just because the work is hard doesn't mean it can't be fun. Our prices are already low. Our first tier is $25 a month. Our second tier is $40 a month. Already really, really low prices where we set you up with an abundance of classes to really help you get back on your wellness and fitness track. However, if you use my name, Brice20, BRICE 20, all caps at checkout, you get an additional 20% off your first 6 months with us over on Fusion Body Studio. On top of that, my friends, you also get the first 7 days for free. So you have 7 days to try out your at-home fitness boutique before your card is charged. And if you decide in those 7 days that you don't want to do it, no problem. You just cancel your account and your card will not be charged. We hope to see you over on Fusion Body Studio. All the information is down in the description box below. All right, you guys, let's get back to the show. This episode today is titled Dark Thanksgiving, Tales of Ghost, Gratitude, and the Dimming Harvest Light. There's an old New England saying that says, when the fields go silent and the last leaves fall, the air itself seems to remember. Thanksgiving, for all its warmth and abundance, falls upon the threshold of winter, a season of hunger, memory, and things unseen. Beneath the golden light of candles and the scent of roasting food, old legends whisper of other guests at the table, the ones who never left, and the ones who return only once a year when gratitude blurs with grief. 1. The Blue Lights of Burial Hill. Plymouth, Massachusetts, since the 1700s. When night falls over Plymouth Rock, the wind carries the salt of the harbor through crooked streets, past the old cemetery on Burial Hill. There, among moss-covered stones, faint blue flames flicker just after dusk each Thanksgiving week. Sailors and schoolchildren have seen them for centuries. Lights that drift towards the sea fade and reappear near the rock where the pilgrims first stepped ashore. Some say they are the souls of the first settlers who never lived to see the harvest feast they dreamed of. Others whisper they are the spirits of the Wampanoag, lighting their way back to the land they once tended in peace. On certain foggy nights, the lights multiply, a slow procession of candles winding down the hill as if the dead themselves are walking home for dinner. 2. The Ghost Feast of the Wampanoag, Massachusetts and Rhode Island. In the oldest forest near the coast, there are clearings where no bird sings. On cold November nights, hunters and hikers have seen ghostly fires burning deep within them. Through the smoke, faint laughter and the sound of drumming echo among the trees. These are called Ghost Feast, the sacred meals of the ancestors who gather to remember what was lost. It is said that when the settlers came, the spirits moved their gathering farther into the wild so that only those who still listened to the earth could find them. If you happen upon such a fire, the legend warns, do not stare too long, for you might be counted among the guests by dawn. 3. The Phantom Feast of St. Augustine, Florida. The Lost Thanksgiving, 1565. Long before the Pilgrims, the Spanish settlers and the native people held a meal of peace by the Florida shore. Roasted game, salt pork, and red wine shared in fragile friendship. But the mission that hosted it burned, and the feast was forgotten by time. Yet locals claim that every few decades, on a still night near Thanksgiving, the smell of fire and spice fills the sea air, even miles inland. Some say you can hear ghostly bells ringing from the ruins, calling the long congregation to supper once more. Those who follow the sound never find the source, only an empty beach littered with seashells and feathers. 4. The Widow of Duxbury Woods, Massachusetts, 1800s. On Thanksgiving Eve, when the fog lies thick over Duxbury, a woman in a gray cloak appears near the old Standish burial ground. She walks alone, a lantern in her hand, whispering, "Is it time for the harvest?" Her husband was a sailor who vanished returning home for the first Thanksgiving. She waits still, unaware that centuries have passed. Those who see her say the frost forms footprints in her wake, then stops suddenly, as though she stepped off the earth. If you hear the creak of a lantern chain on the wind, the old-timers say, don't answer. She's not asking you. 5. The Vanishing Dinner Guest, Vermont, 1930s. It was the night of the big storm. Snow piled high against the doors when 3 travelers knocked at a farmhouse outside of Middlebury. The family, kind and practical, welcomed them in. They ate turkey in cider and near silence, nodding politely and vanishing into the snow as soon as the plates were cleared. In the morning, no footprints trailed away from the porch. Later, the paper reported that 3 men had died in a car wreck the day before the storm. Now, every Thanksgiving, some Vermont families still set 3 extra places for those who are late to supper. If the candle flickers and the chairs creak on their own, they smile and say they found their way back. 6. The Golden Bird of Oregon, Eugene, Oregon, 1957. Thanksgiving night, 1957, the highway was quiet, the rain thin and silver. Then it came, a glowing bird-shaped craft, vast and silent, gliding above Highway 99. Witnesses swore it shimmered gold and red, like fire reflected on feathers. One woman said it looked like a turkey made of light. Others said it hummed, vibrating through the ground before drifting towards the Pacific and vanishing. The Air Force took reports and said nothing. Locals still call it the Turkey Day UFO, and each year, sky watchers line the highway just in case it comes home for another Thanksgiving flight. 7. The Winds of Thanks, Appalachian Mountains, Frontier Era. Before electricity and modern stoves, the mountain families watched the weather more closely than the clock. It was said that if the wind moaned around the cabin on Thanksgiving night, it meant the dead were passing by, listening for their names in prayer. Families left a plate by the window or a bit of food on the hearth so no soul went hungry. If the wind quieted before midnight, it was a sign of peace. If it wailed until dawn, someone had been forgotten. Even now, in remote hollows, some old families still leave a spoon of mashed potato on the sill for the ones who came before. 8. The Curse of the Harvest Feast, Deerfield, Massachusetts, 1704. After a devastating raid, The survivors of Deerfield gathered what little remained for a somber Thanksgiving meal. As they prayed, a tall man dressed in black appeared at the door. He warned them, "Feast not on what was stolen from the earth." Then he vanished. That night, lightning struck the barn holding the harvest, burning it to ash. Each time since, when the locals have tried to reenact the original meal, misfortune followed. Storms, spoiled crops, broken dishes. Now, they say the land itself remembers the betrayal of that year and refuses to give up. 9. The Lantern Man of the Great Lakes, Michigan and Wisconsin shores. As Thanksgiving nears, sailors tell of a man walking across the frozen lake, carrying a lantern that glows through the mist. He waves silently to passing ships, beckoning, and those who follow his light too closely are never seen again. They say he was once a captain whose crew drowned in an early freeze, doomed to walk the ice searching for their souls before the thaw. The Coast Guard calls the lights reflections. The locals call it a warning. 10. The Candle That Wouldn't Die, Maine, early 1900s. In a farmhouse battered by wind, a family gathered around a single candle for Thanksgiving dinner. Their son was at war overseas. They prayed for his safety, though word had not come. The candle burned all through the night, through rain, through drafts, refusing to die. The next day, a telegram arrived. Their son had been killed in battle the night before. The mother wept, but kept the candle's stub in a small box, saying softly, "He came home to see us after all." Locals began keeping Thanksgiving candles as symbols. If the flame lasted till morning, it meant the love of the departed was near. So when the harvest moon fades and the cold wind creeps around your windows, remember, Thanksgiving is not only a feast for the living. It's a night when the veil thins and gratitude echoes across centuries, through wind, through frost, through flickering lights. Because every table, no matter how full, has a few unseen guests. And before we move on to part 2, something that I have done every year for Thanksgiving and Christmas is to give the recipe for pineapple casserole. This is a big southern dish. It's one of my favorite dishes. It's not healthy at all, but it's wonderful for the holidays. And since we have such an eclectic group of people from all over the world, I thought it would be kind of fun once again to share this recipe, especially for people who are not from the South or not from the United States. Something that perhaps our foreign friends can maybe try for their Christmas dinner to impress their family members with a recipe from somewhere else. If you would like to share a recipe with us from your family dishes from holidays, please make sure to pin them down in the comment section below. So once again, before we get into part 2, here is the recipe for pineapple casserole. A link to this recipe will also be in the description box below. Ingredients. You need 2 20-ounce cans of pineapple chunks in juice. Drained, reserve 6 tablespoons of juice. 1/3 cup of sugar. 5 tablespoons of flour. 1 cup shredded cheddar cheese. 1/4 cup butter melted, and 1 sleeve of Ritz crackers crushed. Directions. Step 1. Combine casserole ingredients. Preheat oven to 350 Fahrenheit. In a medium-sized bowl, combine sugar, flour, and reserved pineapple juice. Add pineapple chunks and toss well to combine. Spoon pineapple mixture into an 8x8-inch casserole dish and top with shredded cheese. Step 2. Add cracker toppings. Combined crushed Ritz cracker and melted butter. Spread Ritz crackers topping evenly on top of pineapple mixture. Step 3. Bake at 350 Fahrenheit for 30 minutes or until bubbly, and then serve and enjoy. Part 2. Dark Thanksgiving. Legends of the Forgotten Harvest. The last leaf falls not in silence, but in mourning. Appalachian proverb. As the autumn sun dips low, shadows grow long over fields and forest. In the Midwest and South, where early settlers struggled against the harsh winter and mysterious wilderness, the veil between the living and the dead was said to be the thinnest around Thanksgiving. These are tales passed down quietly, often by those who listen to the wind instead of fighting it. 1. The hungry spirits of the Michigan Triangle. Ongoing folklore around Michigan. North of Lake Michigan, there is a region locals call the Michigan Triangle, notorious for ship disappearances and strange lights. Near Thanksgiving, fishermen tell of phantom lanterns bobbing on the lake. Not just one, but dozens, moving as if an army of lost souls were gathering a feast on the water. Boaters who try to approach report sudden fogs and currents that push them away. Some say the spirits are sailors who perished in early November storms, hungry for the meals they missed, forever searching for a way to join the living. 2. The Harvest Hound of Kentucky. Bluegrass region. Frontier legend. Settlers spoke of a spectral black dog that roamed the fields during Thanksgiving week. Its eyes glowed like embers, and its howl mimicked a wolf's call. According to the lore, this was a spirit sent to warn the farmers. If they overharvest the land, misfortune would follow. If they ignore it, the dog would appear at night, leading entire barns of livestock into the mist. Families claimed that leaving a small portion of food for the harvest hound would appease it, preventing bad luck in the coming winter. 3. The Natchez Thanksgiving Curse. Mississippi. Native American legend. Long before Europeans arrived, the Natchez people held ceremonies to honor the harvest. They believed that if the grateful offerings were taken too early, the spirits of the land would exact a price. Legend tells of an early settler family who ignored the warnings. They took a full deer from the ceremonial grounds. That Thanksgiving night, a black fog rolled down the river, killing their livestock and chilling the family to the bone. Even today, locals claim that wandering into the same forest on late November nights brings strange whispers and cold spots, as if the harvest spirits are still watching. 4. The Vanishing Pilgrim Wagon. Midwest Frontier, 1800s. The pioneers traveling west often stopped to celebrate Thanksgiving in small clearings along the river. One legend tells of a wagon party near the Ohio River. After a feast, the travelers went to sleep. When they awoke, their wagons and animals had vanished, leaving only the food on the ground untouched. Stories say that shadowy figures had appeared during the night, tall, silent, and with faces covered in mist, watching the settlers. Some believe these were the spirits of the original indigenous inhabitants, reclaiming what the newcomers had taken. 5. The Candlelight Caller of Appalachia. Appalachian Mountains, continuing tradition. In remote valleys, families report a knocking at their door on Thanksgiving night, accompanied by a flickering light outside. Those who look out often see a figure holding a candle, shrouded in gray, calling out names of the living and dead alike. It is said that answering incorrectly brings ill luck or illness. Answering correctly ensures the household is remembered by the spirits. Some claim this is the same figure who inspired Wind of Thanks legend, an unseen overseer of the harvest balance. 6. The Turkey Tracks of Louisiana, Cajun folklore. Hunters disappearing in the swamps on Thanksgiving is a long-standing story. Locals tell of a huge webbed tracks found near empty boots, accompanied by the smell of roasted turkey and swamp water. Legends say these are ghost turkeys, enormous spirits of the first birds ever hunted in this region, angry at humans who dare feast before giving thanks. Some say following the tracks leads straight into the quicksand or deeper swamp mist, never to return. 7. The Frosted Window Visitor, New England settlers' folklore. Families living in cold northern towns notice a strange pattern, frost forming on windows in the shape of human hands or faces on Thanksgiving Eve. Stories say these are the souls of those who had died the previous winter, returning to watch the feast. If the handprint appears on the inside of the glass, it's a warning. If on the outside, it is a blessing. A spirit partaking in the gratitude of the living without harm. 8. The Whispering Cornfield, Midwest Farmlands, 19th century. Late November winds through the harvested fields carry more than frost. Farmers reported hearing voices whispering names among the subtle, sometimes repeating their own prayers aloud. The legend says these are the cornfield spirits, grateful for proper harvest rituals but vengeful towards those who took more than needed. Many pioneers left small offerings, a bit of grain, a candle, or a plate of food to keep the spirits at peace. 9. The Spectral Forest of the Natchez Trace, Tennessee, Mississippi, early 1800s. Travelers along the trace told of tables appearing in clearings, laden with food, but no one present. If a traveler partook, they reported seeing faces in the trees, pale and hungry, silently observing. Some claim that those who refused the feast were cursed to walk the trace, lost for hours, even in familiar woods. It was said, "The spirits feed those who honor the land and take nothing from those who do not." 10. The Returning Harvesters, Southern Appalachia, modern retailing. Families who leave a chair, a spoon, or a plate of food for unseen guests report strange phenomenon. Warm spots at the table, chairs rocking, footsteps in the frost outside. Folklorists believe these are the spirits of ancestors, settlers, and lost travelers returning each Thanksgiving to witness the harvest and remind the living of gratitude beyond the feast. It is the tradition that blends memory, caution, and the supernatural, preserved in whispers across generation. In closing, across forests, rivers, and frozen lakes, from the Midwest to the Deep South, Thanksgiving carries more than turkey and pie. It carries memory, warning, and the quiet presence of those who came before. The harvest is never truly complete without honoring the unseen. The guests who leave no footprints, who carry lanterns in the mist, and who remind us that gratitude is both a gift and a responsibility. And for our final recipe that I'm going to share with you today is my favorite Thanksgiving dessert, which is called chess pie. Chess pie is a very old Southern recipe. It's a sweet, rich dessert which cannot be described as anything but marvelous. What you will need is a half cup of butter, 2 cups white sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 4 large eggs, a 1/4 cup of evaporated milk, 1 tablespoon cornmeal, 1 tablespoon distilled white vinegar, 1 9-inch unbaked pie shell. Step 1. Gather the ingredients, preheat the oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit or 220 degrees Celsius. Step 2. Mix butter, sugar, and vanilla together in a large bowl. Mix in eggs, then stir in evaporated milk, cornmeal, and vinegar until smooth. Step 3. Pour into a pie shell. Step 4. Bake in the preheated oven for 10 minutes, then reduce the heat to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, 150 degrees Celsius, and continue to bake for 40 minutes. Let pie cool before cutting. I hope you enjoyed this episode today. I hope that you enjoyed all of the recipes shared here, and I can't wait to hear if you tried these recipes with your family over the holiday season. If any of these urban legends are familiar to you and you've had experience with them, please let us know down in the comment section below. And if you would like to, please share with us your own urban legends from your area of the world. I hope you all have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. I, for one, am very grateful for each and every one of you.